So I'm going to explain this whole camera mount setup and show you a demonstration on the Humvee. On my Camaro, I showed you a really long 40-minute video of the step-by-step process of hooking up just the front camera, the Natika brand front camera. What I'm going to do in this situation, I'm using the same camera, the Natika WD-012, using the same camera on the Humvee. I'm going to show you the diagram of how this works, and then I'm going to take you in the truck and show you what's actually going on. So there's a lot happening here in this. Let me see if I can try to make sense of it for you. So there are three major components. One, you have to have a monitor. Now, you could also have, obviously, a stereo that includes the monitor in it. But in this case, for the Humvee, we have just a monitor. You have your forward-facing camera, and you have your rear camera as well. And then you have a few other components. So we'll talk about those. On the harness for the front camera, it has a connection that needs to be sealed up when you're done, comes off of it. And at this connection, it branches out with a power ground and the RCA camera feed, okay? And they give you a lot of cable. So that's going to come out. You'll curl it up somewhere safe and convenient, and then bring it out to where you're going to make things happen. What you have to do is go to your fuse panel and find a 12-volt ignition on. In other words, when you turn the key on only, or you could do this through a toggle switch if you decide, or if you have a radio that has an output signal specific for the forward camera, you could go there. But either way, you're going to look for your 12-volt ignition on. Okay, you want this to be a fused power source, and you're going to connect that to the red wire coming out of the harness. Now, there's also a secondary red wire you could connect for your trigger. I just take this one off and put it away. It comes out right with the male RCA end, but you're going to go to power. Now, the black one is self-explanatory. Hopefully, the black cable is going to go to good chassis ground. If you can go straight to the battery ground, that would be great. But this is just black cable is going to go to ground. Okay, that is going to set up your front camera, and then you're going to plug this into your front camera input. Let's go take a look at the monitor. These are all going to be very similar. This particular one, all the instructions were in Chinese, but I think that we can figure it out with the pictures they provided, which we did. So your monitor also has a plug similar to the plug here and similar to the plug here that hooks in, and then it kind of snakes down, and it's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires coming out of it. Okay, one wire will be a male end that you will need a female to female adapter for your RCA to go through. Okay, so make sure you have that if you get the monitor that you'll see in the second part of the video. But that's going to be your output to the front. Okay, no problem. Next thing that's going to occur here is there's a green wire that's in the bundle with the monitor that we chose. That green wire is going to be the signal when it gets power for it to switch to video 2, AV2, okay? It also has a ground, all right? So you're going to hook that up to a ground just like that. You could even hook them to the same ground if your wiring permits. It has a power lead here that comes out, and they provided a fuse within it, so you can leave their fuse in or whatever, but this needs to go to 12-volt ignition on power for the monitor. And then the monitor also had an output on it, another RCA, a female RCA, and this is the one that's going to go to our rear camera. So let's take a look at the rear camera. In this case, the rear camera that we went with is an Erapta brand, and it's kind of an all-in-one deal. It comes down and it has a plug that connects it, and at the plug, very similar stuff again. We have a power and a ground over here that are associated with this wiring for this camera. What we're going to do for the backup camera is at your shifter in your car. A couple ways you can do it. You can go right to your shifter. You can go to your backup lights where they come out of the back of your car, and you're going to tag into those. but you're going to find the wire that turns 12-volt power on when you go into reverse, okay? And you're going to feed that to the red wire on the harness. The black wire, you already know what you're going to do with that, right? We're going to ground it. We're going to ground this in, you know, just like you grounded in this one, just like you grounded in this one. Easy peasy. Chassis ground. If you can go all the way to your battery with a battery ground, that's even better. But you're just going to ground that. No big deal. Okay? So you've got shifter or your backup lights. The power that comes out of that will go into your red cable from your backup camera. And then your black is going to go to ground. On the other end, you have your RCA output. And that is just going to plug straight in to that video monitor. No adapter needed in this particular situation to make that happen. Now, one other thing I did, and you'll see it in the second part of the video here, I added a switch. This switch was already in the truck. This is something that I could flick it on and turn on the floodlights, the spotlights that I'm using as backup lights in case you're ever working behind the truck. You don't have to have it in reverse then to have them come on. I went ahead and tagged that also into the trigger wire, which, by the way, the trigger, the backup light wire, again, comes around, and that's what goes to the green wire on this harness, okay? And that way, at will, when you flip the switch, that monitor will come on and play whatever's on that camera. So that spaghetti, I hope, explains to some degree how the wiring goes without having to walk you through the going through the truck, you know, wire by wire. So let's go to the second part of the video and show you how all this actually functions. Let's add a little bonus feature here. This is my front and rear camera system for the Humvee. I saved you all the installation part of the video, mostly because I just didn't feel like getting the camera and filming as I went. But here we go. This is the Natika Front Camera. And I'm using their mount system and a couple of screws right here into the center opening of the grill. Has a nice angle looking right down at the important bits right here. In the back of the truck, we have the Erapta brand camera. There you go. And it is mounted directly to the tag with an adjustable little bit so I can kind of twist it. And what makes that one really nice is for putting a trailer hitch on. It's right where you need it to be. I also went on to Amazon and purchased this standalone TFT 7-inch LCD monitor. And this one, I purchased this because it has 2 inputs for your for your video, AV1, AV2. It did come with some extremely comprehensive instructions. I have to brush up on my Chinese, but I believe that this stands for radio, receiver, DVD. I believe this says backup camera. I believe this says something else, and something else here, and something else here, and something else here, and then something else here. But let me explain how this works. So in order for this to function, you have to have your primary. In this case, I'm using my front camera as my primary. So imagine instead of DVD, it's front camera. Now they use a male end, a male RCA end coming out of the video. I had to use an adapter. You can get a female to female adapter. You're going to need that if you run this brand camera, this brand video monitor with cameras, because that will not plug in. So I did have to pick up a female to female so that my front camera goes in, and then that's primary and it runs easy peasy, no problem at all. Your rear one plugs right in like it's supposed to. It's got a female on it. It goes right in. There's black wire, red wire. This black, this says in Chinese, this says ground wire, see? And then in Chinese, this says 12 volt ignition source, 12 to 24 volt ignition source. And then in Chinese, it says this is your signal trigger wire right here, see? Chinese, signal trigger wire. So what you have to do here, this green one has to be attached to your 12 volt power up whenever you go into reverse in order to get the monitor to automatically switch. Let's go inside and take a look. In here, we got the monitor. It came with a couple different mounting options, which again, this thing was under $40 and just amazing. The Humvee actually has a notch up inside here that I was able to drop this in without drilling any holes. I'm a big proponent of avoiding drilling holes when possible. So the monitor sits right here, no problem. I can make some adjustments to it. It's good and sturdy. For function purposes, when I turn on the key, the glow plugs are cycling right now, and you did see that come up. So now we are looking at that. We're looking right out the front of the truck. See? And something to tell you on the Natika camera, there's a white wire that goes on the harness. You need to snip it in order to stop the mirror image. Okay, so we snip that, and then that creates what we're looking at right there. Of course, we can't see that because the nose of the truck is so high. We can't see that. And so this thing, I can see my brush guard right here, and I can therefore see what I cannot see from here. Now, what's really nifty, when I put the truck in reverse, boom, you're looking at my garage door now. And it's automatic. It rotates and flips. We put it back in neutral, drive, whatever. There's our front view. Now, I can also just cycle this off. This camera, this monitor comes on as soon as you turn the key on, which is nice. But if I don't want to look at this, if I'm, riding at night and it's too bright or whatever, I can just turn it off. The menu allows me to dim it, contrast. I can do all kinds of adjustments. Kind of neat. Now, here's another little feature that I did add. Over here on a series of switch panels that I bought from Midwest Military Equipment, I've got a variety of things, but this bottom one, I wired this to the fog lamps that are mounted in the rear as my backup lights, because you never know when you need a little light back there, and you're not necessarily in reverse. But because that's the same trigger that when I go in reverse to light up my backup lights, if I flick that on, there's my backup camera. And now there's my front camera. So what's nice about this, if I am just in the process of doing some backing up, and you're probably familiar with any modern car, your camera will keep switching from forward to rear while you're putting it reverse and drive and stuff. I can just lock her into reverse the whole time if I'm busy working a backup and I'm trying to get my trailer hooked up. And I don't have to worry about this monitor constantly changing each time I move a gear shift. So really, this thing's pretty simple. I'm gonna go ahead and shut that down and just kind of share a top tip with you. So in reading the Natika instructions, they talked about certain Android systems, radios that may or may not work with the camera. And so it came with, a lot of different instructions to deal with on that. And when I first put this together in the Humvee, I could not get a consistent function of the front camera. What happened is, this right here is a 4.5-inch Erapta brand monitor that I actually picked up off of Amazon as well. And it has a good picture, and it works Erapta to Erapta. It works very, very well with the backup camera. It does not like the Natika front camera. It doesn't like it at all. And so it would go blue screen, black screen. It was just a constant headache. So even though this was a little more compact and whatnot, it just wouldn't work. But one thing I will tell you, compared to the other one, see, these are your two female RCA. In this case, your yellow is your primary. That's your AV1 basically. And then when you put it reverse, your white one here picks up your rear lead. This one only has those plus a power and a ground. It didn't use a different trigger like the other monitor uses, but it would not work. The good folks at Natika, I don't know how to say it, Natika. The good folks at Natika, their customer service is really fantastic. And I assumed that it was a camera problem. So I went through a lot of issues and I worked with them troubleshooting it through. And at the end of the day, obviously found out that it was a monitor problem. The reason why I thought it was a camera problem is whenever I would just go ahead and put the backup camera to the primary input, it worked. And as long as I used just backup camera on it, no matter which input, everything was fine. And then when I would put the other one on, it would go back and forth. So if you run into problems, their customer service is great, but just be aware you could have some issues with some compatibility. We had no compatibility issues on this car with the Boss. It went right in and worked fine. And I have no compatibility issues now on this using that other monitor. So go out there, build something, make something, and put it in your truck and have some fun.